Good evening, out there. It's Mike back with Soberheadz Podcast, one day at a time. Episode 16. I have a very, very special guest in the house tonight. I have Brian in the house. What's up, Brian? Thanks for coming on, brother.
What's up, Mike? Thank you for having me, man.
Man, I know Brian from doing some community work and stuff like that, and I got a chance to hear some of his story, and you guys are gonna be in for a treat tonight, man. So, Brian, here you go, man. Share your experience, strength, and hope, brother.
Awesome. Again, Mike, thank you so much for having me on. This is, just as good, if not better, than a meeting or what we do, man. I truly love it, and I truly believe giving it away is the only way to keep it, man. So we'll just jump in, man. For me, as we were speaking a little bit about, most of my family's from Brooklyn, Staten Island. And I personally grew up in a very alpha male house, and I believe it served me well, and it could still serve me well to this day. But in the same breath, it always made me, I never felt like I was very authentic, right? I always felt I was living in shadows of other people. I was always very concerned about what other people thought of me from a very, very young age. I have two older brothers who I'm super close with. And having two older brothers growing up, a lot of people knew me through them, and I kind of used that as a good thing. Honestly, at first it was cool. Like my older brother, he had some clout. He was tough. I kind of rode those coattails for a little bit. And, unfortunately, all the amazing things I saw these older guys doing, when it came to drinking and drugs, I also saw that, and it piqued my interest at a very young age. And unfortunately, fortunately, however you want to look at it, I started at a young age, with the drink. And I'll get into it more, but it eventually spiraled out into all types of substances. But it 100% started with the drink with me. And for a while, I hear this all the time, and I really identify with this. For a while, it was fun, man. I thoroughly enjoyed getting drunk. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I played sports. I got into the gym at a young age. So to a point that kind of kept me say today on the beam, right? I would still do my thing on the weekends, but I always made sure I showed up for class, even if I had to smooge my way through, when it came to practices. Now, I played hockey for a really long time. That was my sport I kind of chose. And also with that comes a lot of, or at least I seeked out the guys that did a lot of partying, and I could say for me in high school, it really took off. It took off, and it took off rather quickly. It was seemed innocent at first, right? The older guys, my bro, whoever, just picking us up booze. The little guys picking a 12-pack, 30-pack. We go to someone's house that they're cool with, drink, and get hammered, throw up, and couldn't wait to do it the next weekend. It was rinse and repeat, and I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but I just, for me, I felt like everyone was doing it. So it did not seem weird. To me, it didn't seem weird, getting drunk, getting high, smoking pot at a young age. I felt like everyone was doing it. It was almost like a rite of passage, and, again, no, I took it to, even in high school, I took it to extreme levels. And I was very much hanging out with older people. I was hanging out with people doing bad things, and that's where the authenticity thing comes in, right? Because you know, I'm young, I'm dating a girl. When I go meet her parents, I'm like, you know, I'm the scholar, you know, I'm the athlete. When I'm hanging around my buddies, I'm a different guy, you know, and that that life in itself. And at that point, I was really only maybe two or three different people, you know, and as it got progressed, it just got worse. But that alone is just tiring. That life alone is just extremely tiring. But you know, so a few of my buddies went off to school. I stayed local. I went to Brookdale Community College, and I just got neck deep in it, man. Started selling drugs, you know, mostly pot at the time. Still partying, just about making it to class to you know, hopefully pass the class, and that was basically my standard of living at that time, you know. Um, and partying a lot more, you know. I got accepted into William Patterson for hockey. Okay, so I went to Brookdale for 1 year. I got asked to play hockey there, and I could tell you with 100% honesty, the only reason I got into that school was because I was going to play hockey. My SAT scores were not good. I was academically, I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't really like maybe college material. You know, but you know, nonetheless, I played sports. I played hockey at the time, so they kind of pushed it through and got me in. And I was doing I was up there, and it was freedom, man. You know, it was freedom. And I picked a major, exercise physiology or kinesiology, and like, and to be honest, like I just thought it was about lifting weights. Like I didn't really it's an intense it is an intense
I know.
study, man. You know, and I kind of like, you know, 18, 19, 20 years old, right? You know, pick your life, right? And it's like, I don't know, my dad's business, you know, my brothers wound up being cops, right? Like, I don't know which way I want to go. I don't even know, you know, up is up, down. I'm just all over the place. But, you know, so I took that major. You know, shortly after that, two friends went to high school with passed away in just a very weird, tragic way, you know. And you know, at that point, I didn't even know what a grieving process was, but you know, I definitely didn't do it. And you know, at that point, this was about 2006, 7. I started spiraling, you know, and it was like the beginning of the spiral, so I was still holding it together. But you know, I'm in college. I was home on break, and I got arrested, DUI for they got me at a DUI checkpoint, and I had cocaine all over my nose. Not only that, I was selling steroids, so I had a lot of steroids in the back, and you know, and again, I'm with this girlfriend at the time, who knows not too much of what I'm doing. No, you know, knows what she sees, but you know, and long story short, there, you know, got arrested. It was a felony arrest. You know, and that's like the first point in my life where I could have just like said, you know what, I need to go a different way. You know, instead, what I chose to do was I wound up getting PTI since it was my first time. Okay. Otherwise looking at jail time with what they found on me and the circumstances. And, you know, instead of saying, you know what, this is the perfect opportunity, you know, I did exactly what they asked me to do, but I still did drugs. Back then, they did not test for prescription drugs. Okay. It was just the basic, you know, like 5-panel. So again, instead of straightening my act up, I continued to just play the system. And I'm thinking I'm getting over on them, and it's obviously not what's happening. And you know, I straightened up for a very short period of time, and I wouldn't even call it. I mean, it was a scared straight instance, right? I got scared. I was like, man, I need, you know, blah blah blah, and basically about 4 months into the probation. I knew when he was going to call me for a piss test, and I was just playing the game, or at least I thought I was. After that, dropped off of the hockey team. And at the time I said it's not the same as high school. We had a very close-knit high school team. The truth be told, I wanted to party. I wanted to drink. I wanted to use, and that was the end result with that. But with that, I did keep up a pretty good GPA through college. I did continue to party with the hockey team. I partied, I still keep in touch with. There's 3 of us that hung out together. One of them died last year. The other one, I still keep in touch with. Us 3 were very close, and unfortunately, he died from this disease. An accidental overdose, and that's the story. I could sit here and rattle off names for an hour of people, and they don't have this shot, man. They don't get to be on a podcast or go to rehabs so definitely treasure this. But so I started picking up the partying pretty heavily, and at this point I got introduced to painkillers. And I'm also a firm believer is it doesn't matter what your substance is. I mean, you and I were just talking about diet, right? Sugar, one of the recent research studies I found that sugar was preferred over cocaine and rap.
I saw that. I saw that.
Right? Like
I saw that.
Sugar is more detrimental than to your body than ethyl alcohol. I mean, people could justify it, and I justified it. And I could still eat like shit sometimes, right? But you could justify it however you want. It's a mind-altering drug, and unfortunately, kids are on it. I have a son now, and it's just it's kind of one of them things. But my point is, it doesn't matter for a guy like me. It doesn't matter. Porn, sugar, or any other mind-altering substance or anything that's going to distract me is not good because I do it in abundance.
Yep.
Abundance, right? So again, I got introduced to painkillers, and I was using them, to be quite honest, as again, to justify it, was saying you know what, I'm not going to go out and drink tonight. Let's pop a few painkillers, chill in, and that way I get up early, go to the gym, and blah, 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 blah. And, at that point, I was probably a junior and in college at this point. And that's when that addiction started picking up. And it was kind of that was the point, too. There was a big boom. I mean, a lot of people remember the doctor shop and the doctors. It was very easy to get this stuff, man. Very easy. By the time I graduated, I have a pretty sick story. There was a woman that lived underneath us. I lived off campus. There was a woman who lived underneath us, and Sandy and Joy. Joy was the woman, Sandy was the guy. And I used to take him to chemotherapy, and she used to want to pay me for this, right? Because they didn't have family close, and she used to want to pay me, and I wouldn't accept the money. We were maniacs who lived upstairs from her. I always felt terrible that she had to live upstairs or downstairs from us. But anyway, unbeknownst to her, she had a pretty serious reason to have oxycodone 30 milligrams, and she didn't take them often. And I had to get a little procedure on my back. And long story short, she handed me about 100 pills. And again, not in the way let's make this kid an addict, right? It was like a grandmother helping her right? And I could say, pretty clearly now that at that point is when that addiction started, and it started getting really dark really fast. I graduated college. Actually graduated like a 3.2. Not that matters, but I mean, I graduated pretty much better than I thought I would, and got my first job in a wellness center. So here I'm set up to help people change their lives in a healthy way, right? That's what my degree is, and that's not what was going on. That's not what was going on. So at that point, I was still in that game with the painkillers. Excuse me. And I met a lot of people at this place I was where I'm not even gonna disclose the place, but it was a wellness center inside a pretty big bank. All right. And just to get to the nuts and bolts in that, I mean, I was using with the head of HR, using with executive directors. I was using, and none of this do I say proudly, but that was really the beginning, the beginning and end that really blossomed in that job. Again, where I'm supposed to be here, telling people, no, don't eat cheeseburgers, but I'm in the bathroom sniffing drugs. And that's also where I started introducing harder drugs as well. Now, earlier when I started drinking, Coke came in pretty quick. And again, it was just something I feel like everyone did. And it wasn't that big of a deal. It didn't seem that big of a deal. I know it is now, but it didn't seem like that big of a deal. And, at this point, I got introduced to smoking it, that is, that's something I don't recommend anyone do. But it nonetheless, I did it, and it just took me to another level. So at this point, there's nothing I won't do, and still on the painkiller thing, swore up and down, right? I get these prescribed, I don't do them prescribed, but I get them prescribed. It's not that bad. And again, I'm justifying myself. And I said, I'll never do heroin though. I saw way too many people die, right? I'll never do that. And just to make it clear, I'm still drinking. I'm still doing all of it. What I started with, which was alcohol. That's where it started. And, so at this point, I'm kind of a loose cannon, and I'm not hiding it as well anymore. I'm not hiding it as well anymore. And I shortly, about 2 years in to working at this wellness center, they were cutting back, and naturally I'm the guy they were cutting back on because I could barely keep my head up during a meeting, right? So they gave me a month's notice and said, it's nothing personal. We just, they're making changes. And, basically the night before I was supposed to go out, they were taking me out. They were going to take me out. And, at the Hula Hands downstairs, it was up in Weehawken. And that night before, now, mind you, I was supposed to also go on a job interview. I was to leave work a little early, go on job interview, come back, go out to eat. I wound up I mixing a lot of stuff. I mean, Xanax, Oxy, Coke. Well into the morning, I get up to go to work. I hop in my car, and I realize I forgot my resume, right? And I'm like, can't go without that. Pulled back in. By the time I entered the house, I wound up having a grand mal seizure. That was like, looking back, that was like my first God shot, right? Because if I don't remember to get my resume, I'm still in my car when that happens, right? Now that's about the second or possibly third at this point in time where I could have just stepped back, got a little present, and been like, man, things have to change, right? And I also know what I'm doing at this point is just killing me and everyone around me, but unfortunately, went to the hospital, got out of the hospital 2 days later, and nothing changed. And I was, at that point too, I'm getting recommendations from people in the field, man, you need some serious help, try rehab. And, people, now my family has no clue what to do with me, and I just kept on it, man. I kept on that lonely road, and never thought that maybe I'm the problem. That maybe maybe I have a little something to do with this. for a long time, and I could still do it sometimes, but I'm more aware of it now. I played the victim, the poor.
Yeah.
If that doctor didn't give me these pills, or if this person didn't,
Mm-hmm.
and that never got me anywhere, and it didn't get me anywhere very quickly. So at this point, I'm working odds and end jobs. Right, I have this degree. And I also just want to say too, because I do say when I speak at treatment centers, like I always felt like, man, once I start making more money, my life will change. Right?
100%.
This delusion that
Mm-hmm.
once I start making, if I'm making 40,000, if I just make 80 or 100, like my life will get better.
Mm-hmm.
And in a weird way, my prayers eventually got answered, but unfortunately within that time to when I got into actually the union I'm in now, I started heroin. I started using heroin, right? And it started on one time I was sick, right? And yeah, man, this will take the edge off, and let's just call a spade a spade. It's cheaper and it's stronger. And that's all I saw in it. Did it take away the aches, the pains, and the mental agony? Very briefly, very briefly. I'd also met, a girl at this point who knew a little bit of what I was into, but I was again hiding it from her, and I really truly believe that a lot of people knew what I was up to, but just like, no way, not him,
Mm-hmm.
like.
Mm-hmm.
Or didn't know how deep I was actually in, So to rewind back a little bit, actually, right before I got in the union, I had overdosed pretty bad. Got in a fight, and now no overdose is good, but it took about 7 shots of Narcan to get me back. Right? Now my mother found me. That was the first time I overdosed in her house. My mother found me. And now again, I already have a rap sheet a mile long of messing my life up and having addiction issues. None of which I tried to counteract. Right. So it's bad. Obviously, I have to get put into the hospital again, and had to get scans and all this stuff. And the crazy thing is, man, and this is the mental part, right? So I'm laying in the hospital, and the smartest thing I could come up with, because I started feeling a little icky, was I need some stuff, man. If I'm getting to the hospital, so I had someone bring heroin up to the hospital. I come out of the hospital 3 days later. Now 2 bags overdosed me. Right? I come out of the hospital, right, and 2 or 3 days later, and I found 3 more bags. And Mike, it's crazy. Like, I did 3 bags, not even consciously thinking 2 of them overdosed me a few days ago. And now nothing, happened at that point. But this is just the insanity, right?
Insanity of the disease.
And it's even tough to talk about sometimes, but it's necessary. So at that point, I went on a methadone maintenance program. Didn't know what else to do. So again, I figure, like, it's not me. Like, let me go on some. So I went on that program. That program was not good for me. Now, I called myself clean while I was on that program, but the fact of the matter is I was drinking and doing coke. The only thing I wasn't doing was I wasn't doing heroin. And like, that's how, like, polluted my mind was. I was like, well, I'm not using heroin, so I'm clean, basically, right? That didn't last too long, and that same clinic offered a Suboxone program, and that meant detoxing off the methadone over a weekend. I couldn't have it in my system, and that was pretty memorable, terrible weekend. Drank a lot. I drank a lot and did some other. I mean, really, the only thing I couldn't do was opiates, because it could could mess up that medication, the Suboxone. It could work against you ultimately. And I made it 48 hours and went back to the clinic and got put on that. And that was just, another Band-Aid, that wasn't stopping the bleeding, to be honest with you. It wasn't stopping the bleeding. And I stayed on that for a little bit. Now that's the point where I spoke with someone about getting back into construction. They recommended the Dock Builders Union. I waited online. I went through the process, and a month later I got in. Now I'm doing the Suboxone program. I leave the Suboxone program to get a Suboxone doctor because I'm like, I can't go to a clinic twice a week or 3 times a week and show up to work at 5, 6 a.m. Or at least leave for work at 5, 6 a.m. So I'm getting it from a doctor at this point. And I stayed the course with that. As far as the Suboxone, it worked for me. Again, it was just a Band-Aid on a major wound, but it did work for me. But again, I was still drinking. I was still using Coke. I get into the apprenticeship program just under 1 year in the apprenticeship program. I get asked to go on a drill rig as a lead man. And basically the president of the local at the time asked me if I'd be willing to jump the apprenticeship and make journeyman's rate, which is a big increase in pay and a lot of stuff I don't have to go through. So, I was honored. I was flattered. I was like, of course, and, right there, there's that moment where like, if I just make more money, I'll clean my act up. Right. And now here it is. Right. And it's just God, like, here, man, like I'm asking, I'm praying for this stuff, and it's actually materializing. And, I still refuse to look at myself. So, I get put on a job over in Newark Airport, and I'm not going to beat this to death, but I get put on a job in journeyman's rate working about 11, 12 hours a day, and I saw that first check, Mike, and I've never seen that much money with my name attached to it. And like I saw that first check. It was a hard check too. They didn't even direct deposit. It was a hard check. And I saw that money and I was like, wow. And right there I said, you know what? I could take, I started doing the numbers. Right? I keep working here I could take this amount. And fact is, guys off that job bought homes. Okay. Bought brand new trucks. I barely could make rent living with a girlfriend in an apartment. So again, I thought, I'll make money and I'll straighten up. And that was always my problem. I always put things off to the future, to a different circumstance. When I make 100,000, I'll be happy. If I get a house, I will be cool. If I just live my life like that. And, I couldn't even be present enough to when those things would actually come to me to even enjoy them, let alone fix what was really going on. That was the biggest, thing that I didn't realize this stuff until I got into sobriety. But that was just another parlay into a train wreck of my life, and unfortunately, I have like an amazing girlfriend at this time, who's kind of loosely related in the field. She's not one of us, but she is, went to school for therapy, been around it on a personal level and a professional level. And, I was doing my thing, I thought, with impunity, but I was doing it with impunity, man. I really did. And at this point, I'm still seeing that doctor. But after I got that check, man, I was like, you know what? I could hop off the Suboxone for a little bit. I could, do a little this, doing that. That inside of 6 months led me right back to heroin. And then not like, using it a little bit, it led right back. Right before that, while I was on the Suboxone in the beginning, I feel like I'm jumping around a little bit, but stuff is coming to me as I'm talking. Right before like that, I actually went out, right, with my cousin. And it's crazy because I used to say I didn't have a problem with alcohol, I had a problem with heroin, right? I had a problem with opiates. Like, that was my problem. Well, I'm on Suboxone, which is supposed to negate the effects of opiates. I went out with my cousin to Asbury. He was going away, moving out to Cali. And I started drinking heavily at brunch, and that night, okay, right before I went home, I had a dealer that lived out there. I picked up, all right, and I did some on the way home, and I got that little, and I hadn't had in a while, that little buzz, By the time I made it home, it was like my fourth God shot, right? I sit down on the recliner at my parents' house, I do some, and now I wake up to cops and ambulance again. So I had overdosed for the second time. Now, the only reason I was found was because my brother happened to be going through a divorce and was staying at my parents' house and literally got up to take a leak. Right? Like, so I can't see it at the time, but these is just all these non-coincidences, these literal God moments, that took another 6 or 7 shots of Narcan to get me out of that one, and my brother found me on that one. And like, that's the part that I still struggle with, is like, they'll never get that out of their brains, right? That's like forever imprinted in their mind. And that's, to me, that's the worst part of this disease, what we do to the ones around us, So anyway, to fast forward back, I'm with this company. We're working a lot of hours, and I'm getting journeyman's rate. And, I'm lying to the girl I'm living with on why I can't, give up my half of the rent or this, that, and the third. And it's just, I'm just digging myself deeper and deeper and deeper. She finally starts finding things naturally. Like, I thought I was great at hiding stuff, but naturally she started finding things. And it got to a point where I couldn't hide it anymore, right? I would only go to work if I had something in my system. And, not only had something in my system, but enough to get me through a 12-hour day. Unfortunately, we got a phone call one morning. She got a phone call that her sister had passed away. Okay. And, again, it's just another moment I could have stepped up as a man, as a boyfriend, as a human being, man, and I took another opportunity to do the right thing, to do the wrong thing, They had her cremated. It was during COVID. This is around, right before the summer of 2020. Only family was allowed there. And, as soon as she left the apartment, man, I went out and copped the brick. And I sat there and I just lost track of time. And, she came home and going through her own grieving process, and to find me passed out on the couch, and, right there, I can't do this, and she left the apartment. And in a sick way, I was happy about it.
I know. I understand.
I was happy, right? Because now, at least in my mind, I can use free. That's it, wherever I want, right? I don't have to. I have to take
I understand.
Trips. I don't have to pretend to go to Wawa, which, whatever. I could just, and she did. She left, and that was another of one of many spirals, and this is the one that leads me into recovery. I did go to 2 treatment centers throughout this. I went to 3 actually throughout the process. I went to New Hope, and I went to Endeavor House North. Endeavor House North, I was dragged to. Like literally, one of my best friends and my now fiance Sarah, dragged me there, and the seed was planted, but it was never sprouting. I wasn't watering it. It was just planted, and that was it. But so during this time, the government was allowing you to take out of your annuity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I had an annuity that, I didn't even see the money go into. It was just part of our package. And basically from June of 2020 to August of 2020, I burned up about $30,000. All right. I took 20 out, and I took another 10 out. Not necessarily in that order, but it was about 30,000 total. And again, it's just another situation. Well, if I have money, I'll do the right thing. Well, I had money. I had it in my hand. And all I did was wake up, buy drugs, get high, pass out, and do the same thing until the money ran out. Because I'll tell you the truth, Mike, if I would have made $1.2 million, I would have used 1.3 in drugs. Like, I would have never had enough money to sustain the lifestyle that I was going on, right? So that was, no pun intended, it was a pipe dream. It was a pipe dream to think that money was going to fix me, that a house was going to fix me, that a better job was going to fix me. I could never be present enough to be grateful for the things I had, right? So why would I get more, right? Why would God, the universe, give me more if I can't even show gratitude for what I have, right? I couldn't even show gratitude for waking up because I didn't want to wake up. I did not even want to wake up in the morning, man. The pain, the isolation was so devastating. I did not want to wake up. That's where it brought me.
I could relate. I could definitely relate.
And so the end of that run was around the end of August. And the only reason I know that is because I have a picture with my brother at his birthday party. My sister-in-law threw for him. And here's another thing that I used to do was like, well, if I look like I'm in shape, right? I was all about perception, when it came to anything, right? So if I look like I'm in shape, no one should assume that I'm using drugs, right? So that's what I did. When I had enough drugs, I'd go to the gym. I'd eat 3 meals a day, and unfortunately, I was just fooling myself more. So I go to my brother's party. Everything's good. No one suspects anything. And about a week and a half later, I run out of everything. I run out of money. I run out of people to help me out as far as my drug and alcohol use. And at that moment, all I could think about was I never got clean or sober outside of a treatment center. Never put any type of substance when it came to clean. Never could put any time together. So I decided to just dry out in my living room, which is not suggested. I would never tell anyone to do that. So I did, and I didn't drink alcohol, and I didn't smoke pot. I didn't use pills. I didn't for about 6-7 days. Now, I also did not eat. I also did not drink water. I was putting nothing in my body, right? And I got to a point where, I was still with it enough to, when people were calling to check in on me, I would text them back and I'd be, hey, you okay? And they would say, yeah. I wouldn't let anyone come to my place. Again, it was easier because it was during COVID too. So, you could off a little bit easier, like, hey man, I might have this, or and I remember on like the 6th or 7th day, I was hallucinating bad. I did not know what reality was. I didn't know what was a dream when I was sleeping. It was wild. Yeah. And that girl that left, a few at that point, was probably a month prior, maybe more. Here's another God shot. Said she had a bad feeling. she came to the apartment that we once lived at together and knocked on the door. And at that point, I didn't know what was what was real, what wasn't. And I mustered up enough strength to answer the door, and she came in, and there was just green bile and blood. I mean, it was just a disaster. The apartment we once lived in, it was beautiful, was a disaster. And, you know, the first thing she did was pick up a Swiffer and started cleaning. You know, like, that's the type of people that I hurt, the ones that love me the most. Right? She winds up calling my brother and my mom. She suggested I go to the hospital. I said, "No, I'm good. I'm good." Right? I am the furthest thing from good. Right? But I am so hard-headed. I can't admit I need help. My brother comes over. Long story short, they get me to the hospital. I'm in the hospital for about 2 hours, and I go into a coma.
Wow.
9 days, I'm in a coma. You know, my mom was visiting me, leaving notes and stuff next to the bed. And obviously, I don't remember. You know, I do remember like dreaming through that process, but I don't obviously remember anything outwardly that was going on. And but I do remember when I came out of it, the first thing I did was went for my phone. Right. And this is just the mental part of the disease that I feel I never gave enough credit to, even into sobriety. And I checked my phone. They let me out the next day, about the 10th or 11th day, they let me out. And my mother dropped me off at my house. I immediately got in contact with my heroin dealer. Unemployment hit twice during that time I was in a coma. And I went right back to the street, man, right to the block. Like that whole thing didn't happen. Like none of anything happened, right? Now this continued 2 more times. The next month, I was in critical condition for 3.5 hours. It's followed by 2 more hospital visits, right? And they call this the gift of desperation, right?
Yep, I got it.
And if it ain't a gift, right? At the end, man, the most logical thing that made sense to me was to kill myself, just flat out kill myself. Like the wreckage I've caused seems unrepairable. The people I've hurt, right? People just watching me do this. And again, it's the people that I love the most that I'm doing this to, you know? And in the hospital the last time, this was around the beginning of December 2020. Social worker comes in, psychiatrist comes in, and you know they're asking me if I'm on a suicide mission. Now I know enough not to say yes, even though I was. I know enough not to say yes. And they were just like, "Man, you need some serious help. You need help that you're not going to get at a regular hospital. You may not even get at a rehab, but you need to do something, right?" And this woman, I'll never know who she was because it was I got a number to call. This woman spent about an hour, maybe longer, on the phone with me as I'm in the hospital and found me a treatment center that day. Okay. That's Brookdale out in Pennsylvania. Now they said, you know, we have a bed. Now, you know, my thinking again. I said, yeah, I'll come out on Friday. It was like a Tuesday. Right? Nah. She's like, nah, that's not how this works. She goes, we have a bed. We could send a car out to pick you up and we could get you out here tonight. And at that moment, right, I made choice right there, right? And I said, yes. I said, let's just do it. You know, what's the worst that happens? So I get out there. It's like 11 o'clock at night. It's the middle of winter. I'm in the Poconos. And I'm scared. I'm full of fear. And that was it, man. That was the beginning of this thing, man. That was, you know, I like to say the end of the torture and the beginning of the recovery, right? Because I was so tired and so desperate and so just wanted to end my life that I was willing to listen to anyone. And thankfully, I met 2 guys there, man. One guy I'm still in touch with, this a guy named Benny, and this other guy, Keith. And Keith really pointed out all the fear in me. You know, like if you would have said like, Brian, what's fear? Like I would have given you some Webster's dictionary bullshit, right? That wasn't my fear was you know, fear of losing people, right? Fear of what other people thought about me, fear of financial insecurity, fear of this, fear of that. I'm gonna mess. I lived in so much fear that I could never be present, right? Wow. And this guy Keith, man, he pointed it out. And I remember he sat with me for 2 hours, man. 2 hours just man to man talking. And it was like, even to date, one of the most powerful things outside of my son being born. It was one of the most powerful things, right? You know, and unfortunately, that man, you know, he has 17 years clean in NA and has so much to do with my recovery. You know, he was unfortunately found dead in a motel room by himself. You know,
disease, man.
And I was able to keep in touch with him, man, for like 7 months, man. I kept in touch with him, and you know, the what he always used to tell me was shut the fuck up, right? Because I got an answer for everything. And it was funny, man, because he would just randomly see me in the treatment. He would just shut the fuck, don't even say nothing, right? And even that is, it's funny, it's silly, seems stupid, but it was so vital for me to just. And anyway, I was able to go to his wake and funeral and see his wife and or his wake, I should say, and see his wife. And but it was just, you know, I bring that up because he's a really big part of my story. It's still, you know, and you know, I'll never forget that man, you know. But you know, one thing I did right coming out was the suggestions that I never did previous to, right? Go to meetings, get a sponsor, all this stuff. I was focused on work. So it was suggested, don't worry about work. Work will be there. And that wound up being the right move for me. You know, I came out, you know, that girl that basically saved my life, you know, was willing to talk to me. And that was scary in its own right, bro. Like not being, I didn't even know who I was. I didn't know who I was not under the influence. So I didn't know if I knew who she was. And that's what scared me. That's what really scared me. And so I hit the ground running, man. I started doing meetings. And that was my focus. You know, I was involved with my family and I was doing, but like my focus was just hitting meetings. I was so scared of what could happen.
I can relate.
Sarah and I wound up getting back together. And I wound up getting on a job in Neptune, a bridge job, back with the union. Things are pretty much, you know, projecting in the right way. Things are going pretty well, just like everyone said, right? No surprise to anyone in the program. It's all the surprises are coming from me because I'm like, how is this happening? And this is another point at which I learned not to label things good and bad. Okay, like I could easily still fall into, you know, this is good, this is bad, because sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, when I trust that even when I perceive something bad, that it's for a bigger purpose from God, the universe, right? That it might seem bad to me because it's not something I want, but it always materializes for a bigger purpose. And this story, quick story I'm about to tell, is a perfect example of that. I get on this job. I know it's only going to be maybe a month or two, right? I'm about 6 weeks into it. Sarah and I are starting to speak and hanging out and stuff. Long story short, Sarah gets pregnant. Yeah. About 4 days later, I find out that I have about 5 days left on this job, right? So like right there in my head, I'm like, oh my God. Now she's not even like, we didn't even go to a doctor's visit yet. Okay. And I'm like, how am I going to afford this? How am I, you know, what about when he goes to school and shoot? And I'm thinking, again, fear. I'm thinking about the future, the place that don't exist, right? I recently heard, right, the two stealers of time, the past and the future, right? Because you'll never be present.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, getting laid off from that bridge job found me at another company that I'm currently still with today, and I'm a superintendent. I got promoted in this company.
Look at
Right.
God. Look at God.
If I don't get, like, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
but like, if I intervene in that moment, or I sit in my shit, or I don't answer my phone as someone says, "Hey, you looking for a job?" I miss out on these opportunities. You know,
Oh.
unbeknownst to me, I didn't even realize I was doing that. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize I was being present and like letting go and doing all these things I thought were cliche lines in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know, again, I kept my head down, and you know, I have a 2.5-year-old son. We have a baby girl on the way.
All
You know,
praises, brother.
oh man, dude. I mean, we own a home, right?
Mm.
I have a company truck, like all these amazing things, you know, but in recovery, I did not jump into those things called the 12 steps. All right.
Mm.
And that was almost it was a learning process, but it was almost a downfall, right?
Mm.
Because here I am, man. I'm doing commitments. Like, we get the commitment over at Discovery. I'm going to meetings. I have a sponsor. I'm working, and things are working out with me and Sarah. And by all intents and purposes, my life is good, right? My life is great, you know, except one thing, man. I still never dove into me,
It's hard. It's hard.
right? Still never dove in. And you know, I wound up reaching out to a buddy who's got some time in the program, and we dove into it, man, like 6 hours one night. You know, and since then I've done some back to basics groups. You know,
I love it.
those are powerful, right? I mean,
That's how I got sober. Back to basic.
that's
I
meat and
mean, that's the
potatoes.
first time I did my steps in
No,
rehab.
that's
Back to basics.
meat and potatoes right there, man. Doesn't,
Ah.
you know, and you know, again, man, I like the my biggest issue today, again, could just be falling out of gratitude. Like, you know, I hear it, I've read on it, you know, I'm very into like the universal law, and you know, also, and like, the one thing that they all have in common is that gratitude keeps you at the highest vibration.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gratitude is like the strongest, you know, vibration you can be in, or whatever you believe. And you know, I also recently heard, for those who aren't grateful for what they have, will not only not get more, but they will probably give away what they do have. You
Mm.
know, and like, when you think about it like that, so like, I could get on my shit. I could, you know, I'm working like 6 minutes from my house, man. I'm working 6 minutes from my house. I have a great job, right? I have a fiance. I was able to, you know, propose to Sarah.
All praises, man.
We have all, I have all these amazing things, and I could still, I could still fuck it up by getting involved too much. You know what I mean? On the
Mm-hmm.
wrong level. And you know, going to the gym, the holistic stuff, you know, in the past like 2-3 weeks, I've gotten away from that a little bit. And it's crazy because it took me so long to get there, but it's so much easier to break a good habit down than to build a good one up. You know, like, I was able to, you know, and I'm trying to make better conscious choices of that. But that to me is all sobriety. You know, like, I've heard guys say like, "Oh, you know, I wasn't acting sober," you know, yet the sober date doesn't change, right? And when you look into the definition of sobriety, right, the first part's not intoxicated. The next two parts are about behavior.
Yes, it is.
Stayed insensible, you know, in faculties, and making good decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I'm not here to tell other people whether they're sober or not. I really deem that a personal thing. You know, but I could tell you, in the beginning of my recovery, I was not acting very sober, you know, nor would I really consider myself sober at that point, because of my behaviors were not stayed insensible. My decision making was not good, you know, but again, that's the past, you know, and I don't dismiss it like it didn't happen, but if I don't learn from it, then I might as well not even gone through it. You know, and that's where like awareness kicks in for me. So when I started becoming awareness, when I started realizing where I put my attention is where I put my energy, right? Negative things will manifest quicker or just as quick as positive things. And when I realized I have the choice to think positive or think negative, the decision was pretty easy. You know? So it's been a ride, Mike. It's been
I
a
love
ride.
it, man. I love it. I'm gonna clear up. I'm gonna finish off with a couple of questions. But one thing I wanted to add was one of the things was I also go through that too with the gratitude thing at times. But I also came to understand that God always gonna have some kind of thorn in my side that I'm not gonna be able to totally conquer, because then He knows then I might be capable of trying to put Him on the shelf again and going back. You get what I'm saying? So I'm gonna be coming up short in a few things that I gotta keep trying to fight. So then I could keep leaning on Him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like just like you,
totally right.
I wasn't good with like getting abundance of money and doing things. I used to think about the same thing you used to think about when I used to lead a tournament and I had like large sums of money and stuff like that. I used to think about how was I about to sin? What am I about to get into? You know what I'm saying? Like, what am I about? And it never was righteous things that I was thinking about getting into, whether it was going out partying or gluttony, going somewhere just eating mass amounts of food or things of that nature. It just wasn't righteous acts. You get what I'm saying? So now I always pray for Him not to make me too rich or too poor, because both of them lead to sin.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Just let me have enough where I could go out and do and do His duty,
right?
What He needs me to do. How has sobriety impacted your overall family, your relationship with your family, man?
I mean, night and day, man. Like, you know, I spoke at Alina Lodge the other night. I have a commitment there once a month, and you know, I sometimes we open it up like you and I did, right? And I've always gotten a question. I've gotten it multiple times. I really never really knew how to, and I didn't get it the other night. I just spoke on this, but it's like, how was it with your family and like going through what I've gone through and still going through stuff, right? I realized like I didn't do anything to convince them that I'm sober, right? Like it was like my actions told the story, right? Like all of a sudden there was some trust with my parents, right? All of a sudden, you know, we were I could go out with Sarah, or I can make plans and stick to them, right? I could make financial plans and stick to them, like and so like my whole family dynamics went, I'm not even gonna say it went back to where it used to be, because it went somewhere totally new. It went somewhere totally new. My whole family, like, you know, and that's been a gift in itself, right? Someone sent me something, I think it was today or yesterday, about living amends, right? And that's something I get to do today. I get to, you know, I get to show up and just be a part of, man. And you know, again, there's things I can't take away, right? I can't take away me overdosing my mom, my brother finding me, Sarah. You know, I can't take those things away. But what I can guarantee is I make the attempt to make the present moment as best as possible. And that's really what I focus on. And again, I can slip from that, Mike. I can slip from that. I could get in my head and get.
Yeah, we always could do that. We definitely could do that. How do you avoid certain people, places, and things?
So in the beginning, I mean, it was meetings. It was meetings. But again, in the beginning, I was at places I shouldn't have been in, around people I shouldn't have been around, and I was always one to touch a stove, man, multiple times. I'm not gonna lie, man, and I could still be that guy. But I did realize, like, for instance, I was up in South 11th Street in Newark last, okay? And it's a place I used to buy. I used to cop from. Not specifically South 11th, but that general area. And, you know, now when I'm around these places or peoples or things, it's my whole mindset is not of like, am I gonna pick up? It's like, I can't believe I used to come to places like this to spend money that I didn't have. You know, I used to be embarrassed to say I don't drink, and now it's like a superpower for me, right? So it was like, it was my, like, when my perception changed, my whole attitude changed towards this sobriety. It was something like, I'm not a guy that you know, I don't walk around with a sign, but I don't like recover. Like, everyone I work with knows I'm in recovery. If I go out, if anyone asks why I don't want to drink, I'll tell them why I don't drink, right? So in the beginning, it wasn't like that though. So in the beginning, I had to just, if I was in the place, remove myself or just not put myself in a position. And now it's just about being courageous enough to speak my truth.
Yeah, I'll be more like, I don't play around with it. I'm just like super cautious about the whole thing from the beginning. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even giving it an inch to get in there. Right. I had one of my cousins, we went back and forth a little bit because I told him that I'd never go to Vegas again, Las Vegas. Right. And he was like, yo, you always taking things too far. Why would you? I said, bro, I'm in the God heavy, like, right. And why would I fly across the country to go to Sin City to try to figure out how not to sin?
Or literally, like, Sin City, right?
Yeah, right. I'm not gonna put myself in those kind of situations. You get what I'm saying? Because you go to the barbershop many times, you're gonna ask for a haircut. You know what I mean? Like, as you keep going and going, you're gonna ask for a haircut. So even to the point to where I'm in a restaurant and they try to sit me, I don't like sitting by the bars. I don't. The place has a lot of other seats. I don't got to sit over there. You know what I'm saying? And when the person come and takes my drink order, I tell them, like, if it's not like soda and stuff, because I really don't drink soda no more. But if I order a juice, I let them know, yo, I'm in recovery. I cannot have alcohol, because I don't want the bartender to think he's doing me a favor by throwing a little shot in there or something like that, giving me the thumbs up or this or that. Like, I got to make sure, because I'm the one in recovery. They not. And I can't expect them to respect my recovery. I got to respect my recovery.
Absolutely. And we're responsible for it, right?
Exactly. So I don't play around with it at all. How long did it take you feel like, because I know with pause, post-acute withdrawal syndrome and things like that, how long did it take you to feel comfortable in recovery?
Yeah. So the first 20, the first 30 days was, I wouldn't call it post-acute necessarily. Maybe it was, but I was dreadfully tired. like energy. Now, keep in mind, I've done a lot of other things. I abused steroids for years, so my hormones were all jacked up. Right, there's a mirage of other things that had to do with where I was at. But in just outside of around 90 days is when I, like, the clarity started coming. Like, I was feeling a way that I don't even remember ever feeling before. That's when I was like, wow, something's happening. Something's happening here. The first 30 days was absolutely rough, but it's crazy. It was so bad at the end that even for as rough as those 30 days were, they didn't feel like much, because it was so much worse. My last 30 days versus so but I was taking a hit in the energy big time. And again, I listen, the last probably 2 weeks I've been religiously going to the gym. The last 2 weeks, work and but it's a different type of tired now, right? It's a different type of tired. But it could still be a slippery slope. A can of Coke here, missed the gym today, Mr. Jim tomorrow. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it sounds silly, right?
No, it's not. I understand.
But it could become, you know, you just don't, like you said, give an inch. You start giving that stuff away. And at what point is it like, now you look back and it's like, again, and I'm, you know, it's been a month and I'm eating like crap again and I'm feeling tired and all this stuff, you know, it can get real quick, you know? So I think like doing this, having guys like you and other guys in my network to call us on it is huge too.
You talked about doing the inside job when you did the 12 steps. How did this whole process improve your spiritual life?
I mean, I didn't have a spiritual life, or at least I wasn't. At least I wasn't aware of it. So, wow, yeah. I got into meditation. I started getting into, again, the universal. I started getting into like the Kabbalion, the Egyptian stuff. Just Billy Carson. And like I started getting into stuff, and it's crazy because like the more I thought I was pulling away from AA, and like I kind of held like spirituality as like I was like, all right, there's an AA spirituality which I'll probably never get, and then there's this other spirituality that these guys are talking about, and I really held it at two different spots, and then I remember doing it back to basics and reading about the universal consciousness, right? As I'm reading about universal consciousness in other books, right? And that's really where my spirituality grew. That's where I went on, you know, I started seeing an acupuncture. So it was like a multifaceted approach for me, but maybe not a traditional as far as Alcoholics Anonymous, but I wrapped it just meshed perfectly because there's really not much different about it, right? At least in my opinion.
No, it's not. It's not.
Right. Like what you put as within, so without, right? Things like that. What you put out is what's really going on, right? I know when I start judging people, there's something going on right here, right? That it has nothing to do with the situation, because I could sit in Jersey traffic when I'm on the beam and be just fine, and I could listen to an extra book. If I could also be at a great place and have internal turmoil going on and be miserable, right? So like when I realized like it literally is always an inside job, right? Like I'm creating, you know, we're constantly creating our realities, right, with the help of God, and it's spirituality and inside job is I mean that just, I used to hear these things and I thought it was foo-foo bullshit, and it is, once you know it and then you stay away from it, you really appreciate it. You really appreciate it.
I had my spiritual awakening after the 5th step when I did my steps. Right after that, I had my spiritual awakening. We almost done, just 2 more.
Yeah.
How do you? Because I know this was an issue with me when I first got sober and found my faith. How do you handle people close to you, including family members, that are struggling with addiction?
I've actually gotten the opportunity, not so much family, but close people, and one thing, and it's super hard, especially when you're dealing with someone else who's dealing with family. But is like, you gotta let everyone find their own way, and
I know.
Super tough.
I know.
Someone, you know, but listen, you know, my mother was told that. My mom was like, he has to find this on his own, like, for as much as you want.
No,
it's and so it's hard to tell someone that, Mike, but in reality, it's the only way. It's the only way.
I know.
It's the only way.
But you know how but you know how I felt, like I wish I could just touch them and they could feel what I felt.
Right.
And just get all of the stuff that I felt. I wish I could just touch them. You know what I'm saying? But that's not the reality of it. You hit it right on the head with that.
and then that takes away from their process, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I've learned the process is the gift, man. Like this, what we're doing right now, this is the blessing. This is the gift, man.
And the last question of the night, if you was looking at a person that's struggling right now, what message would you have for them?
Just don't give up. You know, like, man, I know I should have been to 150 rehabs, man. Like I went to 3 treatment centers over like a span of 12 years. And like one thing that I've heard and I continue to hear, you know, the more I'm coming around, the more treatment centers I go to, is like you can go to 170 treatment centers and get this on your 171st time. Like,
I've seen it.
You can get you could be 70, 80 years old, right, and live out the rest of your days sober and happy, man. Like it's like, and I used to hear this and be like, this is such cliche bullshit, but it's the truth, man. Like we see guys every week, man, and like that, just not giving up, man. Like it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better, like, right. And like, you know, when you make the choice, when I made the choice, when I even realized I had a choice, right? When I was able to change my perception, you know, or have that psychic change, like again, that's the gift, right? And that's something like they say you can't keep it unless you give it away. And like, you can give it away, but each person has to find or get to that spiritual awakening, you know? And I think like, I think like you don't have to. I used to hear, "Don't stop until the miracle happens," right? And I still like that line, right? But like I was sitting there one day, like, stop until the miracle happens. Like the miracle is I'm not dead, right? That's the miracle, right? So like the fact that I put more than one day concurrently sober, like that's a miracle. So like instead of waiting to celebrate like the 90 day, the 1 year, the waiting for a good moment, like to realize like the moment's now. It's the only moment that exists. It is literally the only moment, the present moment. That's the only thing that exists. And like if I can make the best of it now, and we all can, and we all have that choice. We all have that choice, man.
Well, B, man, thank you, man, for sharing your experience, strength, and hope, brother. It was definitely a blessing to hear your whole story, brother. And most high willing, I'll see you at the spot on Sunday. Most high willing. When this is over, I'll send you a copy of the whole thing, and I'm gonna share it to your Facebook page, and I'll send you a YouTube copy, and I'm gonna have clips that I put up, and I'll also send you the clips, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Dude, I appreciate it so much, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on, brother.
All right, no doubt, brother, man. Thanks, brother.
Have a good night, man.
Wow. B gave a good story, man, and thank that brother for coming on. Next week, I have a special guest from like, I think California or something like that. She's supposed to stop by. And I keep you posted on when everything is confirmed. And this is Mike. Stay tuned next week as we have In the Spotlight podcast on Wednesday and Soberheadz on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your night. Shalom.